Good afternoon. Actually, I'm pretty excited to be here and present a very, very different Mandhaara. We have a very special guest with us here today. And special guest is also accompanied by someone very, very special, her mother. And Kaajal, basically, who's our guest of honor today, sets a record for Mandhaara for being the youngest person to ever come and address us, all of 17. I wanted a little better than that. We've got to give her a standing applause. All of you might stand and applaud. Yeah. I bet, yeah, please sit down. I bet at 17, none of us had the courage to do anything other than worry about silly little things like, why did I get this zit or something like that? Or it takes courage to do things. And, you know, courage also comes from the fact that a family is there to support you. People around you care for you. And I want a similar round of applause for Kaajal's mom, Jyotsna, who has been a support system. Please give her a round of applause. Acceptance is the first step to solutions, and I think they must have worked beautifully together. And I'm sure we're going to draw some wonderful inspiration from this, which will touch our lives in ways more than one. So let me introduce to you today our OCD Fighter champion, Kaajal Gupta, all of 17, and possibly also one of the youngest entrepreneurs. And she is the first entrepreneur to come out with an application, and in today's app world, for people who might be suffering from this problem to find solace early. Because the earlier we find out that we have a problem and start addressing it at its root, the sooner we can solve the problem and then get back to being in the mainstream without getting distracted. Because some of these things can come and disturb not only the person, but also the people around them. Kaajal was first diagnosed with OCD, which she will talk to us and educate us as to what it's all about, rather than the simple belief that it might be a repetitive action. She'll talk to us in a greater amount of detail as early as 8th grade. And it was sort of disturbing to hear that even to get some help in the medical fraternity in India was not all that easy. You had to run from pillar to post to do that. But notwithstanding all that, she was advised to note down what were the triggers that would start this kind of behavior on a daily basis and ensure that it was noted. A young person keeping a diary, the lack of privacy and the clumsiness of the whole thing, and the fact that she has excellent coding skills and of course comes from a family that's a tech family, possibly prompted her to start developing an application in Android, which would finally take shape through even forming a company, which has now come to serve multiple people. Over 1,000 downloads, and it's now being subject to further testing by the medical fraternity and the councils for acceptance. She runs a firm called Liberate, which champions this app, which has about 100 people globally affiliated to it on a crowdsourced basis. Imagine at 17, she has managed to get 100 people to work for her. One more round of applause for that. At 17, I had to depend on my mom to get my things ready to go to college on time. So that's a long, long way. So let's welcome Kaajal to come and share her experience with us and kind of inspire us to stand up and fight. Kaajal, over to you.
We are all a bit OCD at times. OCD is caused by stress. OCD is untreatable. These are common myths that we've all heard. Through this presentation today, I wish to break these myths, provide a clear picture of the importance of mental health, and create awareness on the mental illness called Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. I'm first going to be showing you a short video we made featuring people with OCD talking about how it has affected their lives. To remove any kind of preconceived notions that you may have about how OCD may be a quirk or an adjective. Sorry. Yeah, sure.
Issue about intrusive thoughts and getting stuck in the whole vicious circle of non-stop worrying. So I had to quit my engineering in the first year because it was too much to deal with.
During my early days of suffering, there used to be repetitive, continuous thoughts in my mind which I was not able to handle. I used to feel very anxious because of dirt and often feeling contaminated by various things. Sometimes it used to happen that my thoughts become out of control and I was not able to handle it, due to which I used to feel anxious and very restless often. I was not able to concentrate on my studies or any other work.
As a high schooler, unless perfectly organized, I refused to write notes or study, which would pose an obvious problem, that is, avoiding the work altogether. When I saw my grades drop, my motivation dropped too.
I have blasphemous thoughts about God and fear that I will lose my salvation after I die. This fear is so intense that it interferes with my personal and professional life, because of which I have lost multiple jobs and my close friends. I thought I was possessed by a demon who had full control over my thoughts. These thoughts were so embarrassing that I feared sharing them with my parents and close friends, as I felt that they will make fun of or ridicule me.
I struggle with pure O, where all my compulsions are mental. So, like rumination. So, if I get a thought, I'll waste like a few hours trying to um, solve it when actually it's actually the opposite of what I should be doing.
Due to OCD, I skipped an year in 12th just because I was not able to write my exams. Because I cannot able to study, I keep rereading the things that I write again and again. Like I had some physical symptoms for an obsession, and like a kind of chest pressing feel, and it was with me for like around 2 months. Imagine waking up every day with a feeling of chest pressing for 2 months straight. Then there was these 5 months which I present myself in my room just because of a physical symptom which I thought it might be cancer. I was completely convinced that it's cancer and I'm going to die anyway. So I was preparing myself for my death because I just want to be ready when death comes to me.
OCD is the root cause for many other problems in my life. I do same work again and again, which increased my stress levels, anxiety, and all other problems. Due to these problems, I used to get tingling sensation in the whole body. I was hospitalized. All medical reports were normal. No one was exactly able to tell what my actual problem is. I had to stop my exam preparations, my career, my love life. Everything is spoiled.
OCD has affected my life very badly. I don't remember the time when I was free from it. It had made me live in a dark cage with never ending suffocation, guilt, rumination, sadness, and pain. There was a time in my life when I used to hate myself because of this. I used to have headaches which last for months. The intrusive thoughts were so horrible, dirty, and pathetic, and I used to ruminate about them for months. All this was extremely exhausting. After school, I have to quit my studies because my mind was not in a state of doing anything. I used to cry a lot because I wanted to study and make a career, but my OCD was not allowing me to do that. This made me helpless and there was infinite hopelessness. This made me to fall in another trap of depression and generalized anxiety disorder. OCD takes every good thing away from you. It takes you away from yourself.
Movies and TV shows often portray people with obsessive compulsive disorder as quirky and comical individuals. From the famous Monica Geller to Sheldon Cooper to Sylvester Dodd, all of them seem cool when going about with their OCD-driven rituals. The reality is, however, far from that. People with OCD face numerous problems and daily challenges. So what exactly is OCD? It can be best described as a vicious cycle of obsessive thoughts and fears leading to compulsive behaviors. Did I properly lock the door? What if I scream something blasphemous right now? Did I wash my hands properly? These are all examples of intrusive thoughts one might get. With our brains constantly processing new information and new situations, it's only normal and it's only natural that a person would actually have these intrusive thoughts. It's their brain coming up with solutions to different situations. But the problem with people with OCD is that they come up with an appraisal, a different response to these thoughts, which is different than what is normal. They assign more weight to these thoughts than is necessary, considering them to be a vital part of their personality. And thus, they linger in their minds instead of being just a common fleeting thought for most people. So, for example, if a person has contamination OCD, which is something which a lot of people associate OCD with, they may think, what if germs and dirt from the things I touched today are still on my hands? What if I infect my entire family with these germs? What if they die due to the infection? And so you can see that appraisals tend to jump to the worst possible conclusion, leading to a very quick downward spiral of thoughts. And so you can also see over here that besides the anxiety and stress which may be generated due to these intrusive thoughts, there's a lot of guilt as well, since there's a lot of responsibility associated with it, because they think, if I don't wash my hands, then that would lead to my family dying, so I'm responsible for preventing them from dying. So they try to shoulder that responsibility of preventing bad things from happening. And so the reaction to that creates a lot of discomfort, worry, and panic, and the thoughts linger to such an extent that they become obsessive thoughts. And that leads to a compulsion to kind of relieve those obsessive thoughts and anxiety. And these two components, obsessions and compulsions, form obsessive compulsive disorder. So in a nutshell, we can say that the vicious cycle of OCD begins with an obsessive or an intrusive thought, leading to an appraisal, which causes a lot of anxiety for the person. And that leads to a habit which a person develops to try and relieve that anxiety, which is called the compulsion, and that provides a momentary relief, and that blinds them from kind of seeing further, as due to the sense of immense relief after they do the compulsion, leading to an obsessive thought again very quickly. And my team and I actually came up with an analogy for that purpose to make OCD seem more concrete, since it's such an abstract idea. So we came up with the idea of it being a ghost. So over here, you can see that OCD is, we kind of came up with an analogy for it, trying to personify it. And it is a ghost in which seems very small and helpful at first, guiding the person on the right path, telling them what and what not to do to prevent any kind of catastrophe from happening. But eventually it grows, acquiring more and more layers and becoming more and more scary until the person cannot say no to it. They physically cannot. Before, they were able to say no to it and say, it's okay, I don't need to do this. But now, it fills the person's head with so many horrifying images of what may happen that they're too scared to say no to it. But the fundamental thing about OCD is that it has no essence in it. Beneath all of those layers, it is essentially nothing. So it just tries to acquire more and more substance to become bigger in the person's mind. But every time you stop giving in to the compulsion, try to break the vicious cycle, it becomes smaller and smaller. So now I'm going to talk a bit about the different types of OCD. Most people associate it with cleaning and symmetry. Maybe if your friend wants all their books in alphabetical order, you'll call them OCD. But there are a lot of different types, and learning about those types will help you to more readily recognize them and accept that maybe you do have OCD and approach a therapist. So the first one is cleaning OCD, which is the most recognized type. And that a person with this type of OCD may wash or clean themselves excessively, or may take showers a lot of times. So a person who thinks their hands are dirty after touching a doorknob may repeatedly wash their hands or scrub them raw as a result. Then there is harm OCD, which is kind of with checking compulsions. And so how many of you have ever been hit by the realization that you might be able to harm someone at any given point? Just a thought. So you may have been quick to dismiss this thought as what it is, an actual fleeting thought. But someone with OCD will not be able to get past that thought and will be stuck on that, thinking that, oh no, what if this means that I'm a threat to other people as well as humanity? So they'll be constantly checking to ensure that no harm comes to those around them. And so for example, someone plagued with the thought of the obsession of stabbing someone with a knife, They may try to constantly check to ensure that the knife is not on them or far out of reach. And if they do touch a knife, they try to avoid people for the rest of the day. So you can see that the compulsion over there is the avoiding of people. Then there is doubting OCD, which form which I actually had, which involves rumination. Pure OCD, which involves not very overt compulsions, but mental ones in which you keep on going over and over the same scenario in your head. So that can involve metaphysical or philosophical topics or thoughts about aggressive scenarios, what may occur, such as snapping, and then try to figure out how you would respond to that. Then that could also involve constantly repeating, counting, or chanting something to counter a particular thought, to try and pacify themselves and guarantee that no harm can be done. Then there's something called symmetry OCD, counting and arranging things. So a person may try to arrange some like books or pens in a way that so that something bad may not happen, to ensure that no misfortune will occur. Or they could also try chanting certain words or phrases again and again until a task is accomplished perfectly. So for example, they may think that my mother will die if I don't repeat the word shower 8 times in my head, or if I don't arrange and color code all my books, then I will get robbed. Then there is also something called hoarding OCD. That can actually be distinguished into one of its own categories, in which the person collects and stores items and possessions which may be of use someday, that has any kind of emotional attachment with them, and that can occur independently of OCD too. So you can see over here that the compulsion is the hoarding. So now we're going to talk a bit about what myths OCD have, because it is a very stereotyped disease, and one of the main things which will help people to realize what it actually is and to accept that they have it is to kind of bust these myths.